They finally added explanations for save data to the game, so let's go over all of the mechanics, and then we'll go over what you should be doing to get the best possible saves for your characters. So these first three things here, the three different memories, it's just classifying certain things. Unrecognizable memory is just stuff that won't ever be added to your save data, which is the fates that you get. Vivid memory, this is just a term. It just says that the 8 starter cards to your characters, like the 3 base cards plus 5 unique cards, or they call it 4 starting cards, 4 epiphany cards too, and gear, and any sort of base epiphanies, not divine epiphanies, won't count towards, they won't be removed. They're guaranteed to be kept. You can't lose them, they don't count towards anything, they have 0 cost, basically. And then Fate Memory is anything that has a chance to be removed. So this is Divine Epiphanies, neutral cards, monster cards, removals, duplicates, and whatnot. So since removals count as a Fate Memory, this is why sometimes your cards get added back, because it has a cost associated with it, which we'll talk about later. So first things first is the save data tier. Now instead of just saying low, high, very high, it tells you the exact tier of what you'll have for each run. And as the difficulty increases, plus the type/value of codex configurations in Zero System, the tiers will increase. Nightmare also increases it by 1 tier. And then we'll talk about this a bit more later, but we're going to start getting into Fate Memory acquisition cap. For tier 1, it's 30 at base, and then scaling by 10 with each tier. So let's take a quick look at the save data tiers first. So if you go into Chaos Manifestation, we'll go here. Difficulty 6, or difficulty 1 is 1, difficulty 6 is 6. At base, your difficulty is your tier. Turn on Nightmare, you get +1, so difficulty 6 will be 7, and the highest difficulty, which is 10 in Zero System, at base it will be 10, and then Nightmare will add it 1 to 11. You can go higher than this though, because if you go into Zero System, and you go to your codexes, you can see this is a difficulty 5 run, but this is a tier 7 data. They mentioned that like the value of your codexes or whatever will increase the value of your saves. I'm not sure exactly how this works, to be honest. This is something that needs testing. Because there's just some things that are kind of weird about it. Like this is a difficulty 6, and this is save data 6, and the modifier is not very good. Delete 1. This is pretty trivial. This is difficulty 5, and this is like, I mean, this is tier 7, that's fine. Like, Gangrene 3, Loss 3, both are very annoying. Actually not. These are actually the easier ones, it's just the value is high. So this being tier 7, sure. Then this one only has Plague 1 and Neglect 1, so I'm not sure if there's like internal values that they have that say certain modifiers are harder. We can also try just crafting one. This is one of the easier ones, so let's do this one. I'm gonna see what pops up. So this is difficulty 6, tier 7. This is 6, tier 7. And you can see even with like a level gap, I don't think the levels really affect anything. I think it's entirely down to the modifiers. I would say that from what I'm seeing, because all 3 of those codexes earlier were crafted before, these are all after. At a glance, I feel like if you have at least 3, it jumps 1 tier. The colors don't affect anything. The colors just denote how many modifiers you have, but not the actual like difficulty of the modifiers itself. But 2 plus 1, 3, this is like what I've been eyeballing it with, so this is something that needs testing, of course, but just know that your tiers can increase in Zero System. So next up, let's start talking about Fate Memories. So they mentioned here that tier 1 is 30, and this increases by 10 points with each tier level gained. The highest I think we can go to is 15. It's not 50. The highest is 13, 150 max, because your base is 10 for difficulty 10, plus 1 nightmare is 11, and then plus 2 is the highest I've seen from Zero System. The codex increases, don't know if we can go higher. would need some people to check that. So 150 is the max we've seen. Going more deep into the rules, this is just going over some of the basic stuff. All of your faint memories are recorded individually into save data with equal probability. So anything that you have, if it goes over the cap, there's an equal chance that it gets stored. Now, neutral cards are 20 points, while monster cards are a whopping 80 points. Plus, if either of these cards get an epiphany, it's 10 points. Epiphanies towards your character's... what word should we use here? Because base isn't the word. The 8 cards that they are given, they're given cards, or natural cards or whatever. Any epiphanies towards those, which only 4 cards can get epiphanies, won't have any sort of point cost. Now, divine epiphanies, regardless of cards, I guess they call them unique cards, count for 20 points, whether this is on neutral cards or like your character's cards, monster cards. Any divine epiphany is plus 20. Now, card removal. Your first card removal is completely free. Second card removal onwards is 10, 30, 50, and then 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, etc. is 70. Also, if you remove a starting card or an epiphany card, now this needs a bit of clarification. Epiphany card means your character's 4 cards that they don't start with. So in this example here, it would be these 4 cards here. Pretty much. It's the cards that you get from Epiphany, not an actual Epiphany card, like a card with an Epiphany on it. A little bit confusing, but basically this means that any of the 8 cards that your character naturally has, they're given cards, natural cards, whatever, removing that costs 20. Also, card removals affected by the removal talent, which I'm pretty sure this means that any card that has a remove modifier on it is not affected if you remove them that way, which has some interesting implications. Card duplication, pretty much the same thing. Your first duplication is 0, and then it's 10, 30, 50, 70 from 5 onwards. Also, if you duplicate anything, like you do duplicate a Divine Epiphany card, the duplicated card is subject to the same cost modifiers. I would assume this applies to neutral cards and monster cards as well. And then the first card conversion counts for 10 points. I think this is just a mistranslation because it says the first. They don't mention a scaling here, so I'm just going to say that card conversions are 10 points. If the converted card has point affecting elements, these effects are also counted. I would assume this refers to neutral cards because I don't know what else this would refer to. And then even if the converted card is removed, the record of its conversion is not deleted. This just means that if you convert a card to a neutral card and then remove it, you still get this like 10-point cost basically. And then forbidden cards count for 20 points and are always saved. This pretty much just means that forbidden cards being from the new season, even if you pass the save data cap, you'll always keep the forbidden cards pretty much. Now, one more note is that if, like, just for example, they mentioned this sort of, but if you acquire a card and then remove it, you still get the removal cost. Like, pretty much, even if 2 decks look the exact same, one of them might cost more because you had to actually remove it. So now let's take a look at this sheet, which I'll link in the description, of course. And there's a couple things I need to change here, I think. So this is just saying difficulty equals tier. Nightmare adds 1, Zero System adds some tiers, which needs a bit of testing. It's +1 or +2, maybe +3. Base is 30 at tier 1, +10 each tier after. Max is probably 150. The color doesn't exactly affect it. I'm just going to say high mod Zero System. And it goes like this, pretty much. If it went to 14, we'd see 160 here. And this is all of the general effects, which I already went over all of these, but the important stuff is that it's like base epiphanies don't count for your natural cards. +20 to starting our epiphany cards, the cards each unit has. Cost scales for removal, cards remove tag don't count. Copied cards have the same cost rules, etc. yada yada yada. So some examples would be a classic Mika deck. You remove Water Arrow, it's 0 +20. Remove Whirlpool, that's 10 +20 for 30. you copy your first source of water, that's 0. Copy your second one, that's going to be 10. And now let's get a gear bag. And then we get an epiphany on it too. So that's going to be 30 because it's 20 for a neutral card plus 10 for the epiphany. And we get a second gear bag. And it's going to be, again, 20 plus 10 for 30. For 120 total, this gives us a bit of wiggle room. If you are at difficulty or tier 13, then you would be able to get 3 divine epiphanies and be okay. And if you're only at difficulty 10, or tier 10 rather, this would be your absolute limit. There is one thing that I need to test, which if you buy a neutral card multiple times, like buy 2 gear bags, I don't think this would count as a copied card. I would assume that copy refers to replicated cards, like cards with the replicated modifier. That needs testing because I don't have any copies worth like multiple cards bought. It shouldn't be too hard to check though. I can just do a couple of runs. So here is one of the most interesting things about this system. Here I did a run where I went in, I converted a common card to, or converted one of my basic cards to a neutral card, and then I removed it. Now when you look at the save data, I have the run here. I go to my combatants. It's one of Mika's like 50 saves in here. I think it was one of the higher ones. It's this one. So here I have one of my cards removed, which if we know the cost, it's 0 for the first removal, plus 20 for removing one of your 8 given cards. But I only have 10 cost here. This is because I first converted it, which has a cost of 10, and then removing a neutral card has no cost associated with it for the first one. So pretty much if you convert any card from your character's base like set of 8 and then remove it, it'll save you 10 cost. This is really efficient. This makes card conversions really valuable even if you don't plan on keeping them. One more thing, there's certain events that convert cards into other cards that have the remove tag on them, and it says that cards with the remove tag don't count towards the card removal like scaling cost. So this means that if you're trying to remove more than 3 cards from your deck, doing it in this manner via the events should theoretically be really useful. This one's the fresh raw meat from Blue Pot, which is relatively common, to be honest. The downside is you're running Blue Pot, but this means that there might be some events that are really good for optimizing your decks. This needs a little bit of testing, just because I haven't seen anybody actually try this yet, but this could be a really useful way to thin out your decks. This also means that we should skip Divine Epiphanies unless they're actually good. Like, don't just see Divine, click Divine, because if you pick up a mediocre Divine Epiphany for one of your 8 natural cards, then that's going to give you a 20 cost for no reason. You should also skip bad or mediocre neutral cards, because the cost is pretty high. It's 20, plus 10 if they Epiphany, and you can't really skip the Epiphanies. And especially monster cards, I think monster cards really look like you only use them for the chaos themselves. You're not meant to bring them outside, because 80 cost is like half of your entire cap. Also, because your first removal and first card copy is free, you should always try to remove and copy at least 1 card. That's pretty much all of the rules for the... Or first things first, this is one of the more interesting decks that I thought of, where this is a raid deck where you convert 4 of her cards to a neutral card and then remove them, which in theory should only make it cost 10, 20, 40, then 60, because you don't have the plus 20 thing slapped on. And then you copy Snack Time once, copy Snack Time twice, and it would cost 140 total. In the end, your deck would... The way your deck would look would be kind of funny. It would literally just be... Like, we remove 1, 2, 3, and then this. So you would have 2 Snack Times, a Resonating Darkness, a Predator Blade, and a Strike of Darkness. So it's like a 5-card hand with 2 Snack Times, and it would work. Now this has 140 cost, which is pretty high, but I think this is like one of the funnier decks that you could possibly make. But this is actually all of the general mechanics behind save data in CZN. I'm really glad they actually gave us like a proper guideline for it. Yeah, we still need a little bit more testing, of course. Like, the conversion thing is very, very funny. I think this is like a very interesting way to actually min-max our decks. And the zero system thing needs a bit of checking, just because like I've seen some like weird stuff about it. But anyways, hopefully this helped anybody who was trying to figure out the save data.